So good morning everybody and welcome to this Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on Monday the 18th of December 2023. Do we have any apologies please?
We have apologies from Councillors Francis and Peters and Officer Kate Lauder.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest from members at all? Just to remind members, if a declaration comes up during the morning's meeting that you want to make us aware of, please just indicate and we'll make sure that's recorded. So item 3 are the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of November 2023. Shall I take them by each page, starting on page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9 and page 10. Are we all happy that I sign those as a true record of the meeting? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So we'll move on to one of the first main items of this morning's agenda, which is item 4, the People's Strategy 2023 to 27, update on progress, report to the Leader of Council, Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to members of the committee, which is, I think this is going to be the last sort of formal meeting of the calendar year, so happy Christmas to everybody. The purpose of this is to update you on the progress that we're making on the People's Strategy between 23 to 27. I, as always, assume you've had the opportunity to review the report prior to arrival. Paragraph 4 of the report details the progress we've made in year 1 and sets out clearly where we're up to. And I think I just want to draw attention to people's attention to the progress that we've made to get there. Yes, there are still some gaps, but actually there's been some good progress in what we've been trying to achieve. We also go on to talk about year 2 through paragraph 5 and the progress that we're making there, and indeed particularly around the impact we've achieved on hire rates. By hire rates, that's the time it takes us to get somebody from applying for a job at Staffordshire County Council to actually getting them in. In the world of online applications, the turnarounds are very, very quick indeed, and we are getting much sharper at dealing with that, which is absolutely fantastic, particularly around children's services where there's quite a high level of demand. On page 13 and afterwards, we go through each of the pillars in turn. Attracting and keeping talented people on page 13 and the various statistics. There's a lot of statistics in this report, and I would, with respect, Mr. Chairman, hope we don't drill down into each individual statistic by turn. I see Councillor Pert might have been anticipating doing that, but nevertheless, if we could avoid going into the minutiae of the detail, I can take away detailed questions, but and then moving on to page 17, promoting a positive working environment, again setting out our progress there, developing skills for now and the future on page 21, and developing leaders for now and in the future, followed up by the actual strategy, again by way of a reminder as Appendix 1, and the community impact assessment. Mr. Chairman, that's the progress outlined in very, very broad terms. I'm more than happy to take questions and I'll try and deal with them where I can. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor White. Councillor Pert.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everyone. If I may just start with a sort of a general principle that I'm seeing across many of the more forward-thinking organisations that I see across not just Staffordshire but also the country. I'm seeing a much faster move in terms of the EDI strategy to use of the word equity rather than equality and diversity and inclusion. And if you Google equality versus equity and what's the difference, the terms generally may sound the same, but the implementation of one versus the other can lead to dramatically different outcomes for people, particularly those marginalised people. So equality is about giving everyone the exact same resources and opportunities. Equity recognises that each person or group has different circumstances and allocates the resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. So I guess my question is more the strategic one. You know, why is the County Council still using the word equality? And has it reviewed the position of actually moving to equity rather than equality? Thank you, Chair.
I'm a firm believer in equality of opportunity, giving people the resources they need to achieve the best that they can with their abilities. Equity says, well, actually, you can forget about that. It is simply a case of everybody will have the same. And what we'll do to make sure that everybody has the same is by giving them a varying amount of resources in order to achieve the same no matter what. You could critique it from both the left and the right if you're looking at equity. What do you do with aspiration if you're going for equity rather than equality? You're giving people the tools to do the best that they can be, and then they can go forward and achieve. Equity says, well, actually, no, don't worry about that, because everybody's going to be the same. So I don't believe that this organisation at this juncture wants to be looking for equity as it stands, because equality is about equipping people with the skills that they need in order to succeed. You will see as you go through the report in detail the amount of training we make available to people to give them the equality of opportunity. Equity of outcome is everybody wins, there are no losers, and I accept that for some people it is tough to be told that you're not going to make it, but actually what we will do is make sure you have the opportunities to achieve the best you can. And that's the best I can do with that answer, I'm afraid, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Pert?
Can I just come back? I heard what you said. Thank you. I guess my challenge back would be for those people, you know, maybe there's a physical impediment. Maybe there is one of the protected characteristics that makes it more difficult for those individuals to get the best outcome that they can. And equity would seem to recognise that. And I'm happy to have a further conversation, but I think that would do it.
Mr. Chairman, people who have physical impairments, for example, perhaps they're confined to a wheelchair, what we do is make reasonable adjustments to allow them to succeed in the role. Equity and, for example, equity of outcome, if you apply it to the world in general, it means that everybody gets 3 A's at A level, doesn't it? And we can't all be like that, because by extension you're saying, well, what we will do is we'll not just have a package of teaching which allows children to learn the subject, but what we'll do is for those children that aren't necessarily going to make A grades, we'll divert all the resources into them to make sure that they do. Equity is something which has been hijacked by certain groups to say, actually, there is no difference between any human being on this planet. We're all the same, and what we will do is ensure equity. It's something I'm quite passionate about. It's something I've read quite extensively about, because it is an area where we could fall into a trap, and people will say, well, actually, we should have 4,000 chief executives at Staffordshire County Council. We can't all do the same thing.
Councillor Yates?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just referring to, I think it's actually page 12, which is page 36, page 12 on the report, page 36 in the pack, and that is the 2 of the 4 pillars referring to attracting and keeping talented people and developing skills for now and the future. 2 aspects of this. And I have mentioned this before. There's a new qualification which is coming out. There's too many new qualifications in some respects, but it does seem quite pertinent to the kind of work which we do, especially on the health and social care side, and that is the introduction of T-levels, which have got an awful lot of employee workplace based assessment and requirement within the course. And also linking that to really engagement with schools in the career service at schools. I mean, it's a long time since I've been in school, and it's a long time since I've had children at school, so I don't quite au fait with how the careers system works there. I know it's one of the things which has diluted with the push to send students and things to university first, so to speak. But I think the T-levels gives us an opportunity, if we want to develop skills which fit in with the council, which we want to engage a degree of ownership on how that's being developed. And we want the opportunity of attracting our people from our schools who potentially want a different path. So I wonder what your thoughts and opinions are about working with local colleges, universities to actually establish specific qualifications which trains people specifically for our needs for the future, and actually future-proofs and brings those people close to the town, to the council. And also at the same time, when talking about careers, having that opportunity of talking about what the councils and what the county council specifically does and what kind of career paths and career opportunities there are, even if you are really encouraging some students to go to university to look at that, to bring it back. You know, it's about making sure we've got the next levels and the ultimate levels, because yep.
Thank you. Really pertinent points. So, as referenced in the report, we've recently launched our new careers website, and the work that has gone into contributing to that and the work we did prior to that was to really try and better understand from an external perspective what people think of Staffordshire County Council as a potential employer, including younger people. And that has informed our approach to our new careers website. And we've created some videos of our brand ambassadors. And that's really to articulate to a much wider audience the various career opportunities and careers that are available through Staffordshire County Council. Through that work, we also invested in a new applicant tracking system, as Councillor White has made reference to improve the experience of people applying to Staffordshire County Council. And through that investment, we've brought back in-house our recruitment administration, and the recruitment team are now working far more proactively because they're part of Staffordshire County Council rather than an external provider, to work more closely with the local schools and colleges. So going into our schools and colleges within Staffordshire, and also universities through careers events and so on. One of the priorities for the next 12 months is an early careers strategy, and that will look at how we extend the work experience opportunities of current children, young people in school, but also to our care leavers, and also through the apprentice levy and apprenticeships, really to encourage younger people to apply for the roles within Staffordshire County Council. So it's something that we're acutely aware of. There is more that we can do, but we've made really positive progress over the last 12 months, and over the next 12 months we'll make even more progress.
With regards to the apprenticeship levy, obviously as a major employer we do contribute to that levy. Are we taking our full entitlement? Are we making sure that we get value for money in the funds which can be returned to us because of the levy which is charged upon us?
I've recently commissioned the Local Government Association to undertake what they call an MOT. So that's a service that they provide to all local authorities that are members of the Local Government Association, to come in and review our approach to the apprentice levy with a view to making recommendations to how we can enhance that offer. So we do utilise the levy. That includes both recruiting apprenticeships into the organisation. We also utilise the levy by formal training to existing employees, and we also make use of the opportunity to transfer our levy to other organisations within Staffordshire that contributes to our wider employability and skills strategy.
Members, I must apologise, I forgot to introduce Sarah Getley, who is the Assistant Director for Place, so apologies for not introducing at the start. Anybody else? Councillor Clements.
Thank you, Chair. really pleasing to see on the green scheme that we've got 52 cars already leased on there. It's a small amount, but it's getting there, and it's a pleasing figure to see from my perspective. Just on the paragraph 33, the post-COVID-19 syndrome, do we know how many colleagues that's affecting, and what support is being given to them? And also, what support do we offer for colleagues and members for bereavement? Because I've really struggled to find that anywhere in the report, and also struggled to find any support for myself, and had to go somewhere else. So just a quick question on that.
Thank you. May I come back to you on the bereavement support specifically? I know many colleagues access our Think Well service, which is a counselling service, and there are a number of providers that are part of that framework. So depending on the reasons why someone is seeking to access that type of support, there is a triage service, as you probably would expect, and that triage service directs people to the most appropriate provider on our framework. What I don't know off the top of my head, I'm sorry, is if there's any specific bereavement counselling as part of that framework. I imagine there will be, because our wellbeing offer is substantial. I'm really sorry I can't answer your question immediately, but I will double check, and I will, through Mandy, if that's okay, confirm the bereavement support. I would imagine that is in place as part of that framework.
Anybody else? So just a few questions from me, please, or a couple of observations. I struggle sometimes with some of the definitions that we use, or the descriptions. For example, significant impact achieved, or in progress, or completed. Sometimes it's nice to give some examples of what does that look like in the organisation. For example, our year one priorities, setting the right culture and achieve our ambitions completed. It'd be nice just to know what does that look like then in the organisation. How can we demonstrate that we're doing that on that, in relation to that? And then on page 12, when it talks about mandatory training, what sort of mechanism do we have in place to make sure that everybody actually does go through the mandatory training, to make sure everybody has that understanding? Those are probably just a couple to start with, please, if I may.
Thank you, and apologies if the next report needs more detail than the current report provides. Just hopefully to provide you with some assurance. The strategy has been written in a way, hopefully, that's really accessible to anyone in the organisation to pick it up and understand it. So it's deliberately simple in its presentation. What sits behind it is a really detailed programme of activity, and we have dedicated programme management support. And for each work stream within the programme itself, as I'm sure you would expect, there are key deliverables, there are performance measures, and we track the delivery of that particular work stream. That is reported through the integrated quarterly performance report through to Cabinet. So all the programme is RAG rated in terms of whether it's on track or delayed and so on. And generally the programme is green overall. Occasionally it slips into amber because of capacity issues, because the team that I'm responsible for deals with obviously day-to-day work as well as delivering the projects within the people strategy. We have a steering group that meets on a monthly basis and reviews the progress against all of the work streams, and we're also putting in place a programme board to provide that extra layer of governance. So that detail isn't contained within the report, but hopefully that provides the committee with assurance in relation to the visibility and transparency and monitoring of the delivery of the strategy. I'm really sorry, I can't remember what your second question was.
No, I think that's fine. So I think you have to answer that. 14, careers website and brand ambassadors. The careers website, do we know actually what hits have been taken on that new initiative that's been launched there?
I will have to refer to my resourcing manager for the most up-to-date information. In the first week, I think it was, it got 2,000 hits, which was a significant improvement. Prior to the launch, on average, there was 4,000 hits a month, so significantly overachieved previous attention. What I think you'd probably expect is, because of the publicity and the communications in relation to the launch, it might have hit a peak when it was first launched. However, with the new system that we have, and obviously we're able to track because of technology, the number of visits to that website, and that's something that my team do on a regular basis, and I will be able to provide that information to you.
Finally, for me, just leading on from what Tina said in relation to Green Car Scheme, do we do any other schemes like Cycle to Work scheme, where we're encouraging people to use bikes, or even and also in relation to the health offer, do we have a health offer that we offer to employees and their families at the moment?
Thank you. Yes, we do have a Cycle to Work scheme. We this year introduced a new benefits platform, so it's an online benefits platform that staff can access. That gives people to discounts for a very wide range of national companies, but also we're working with local businesses to sign up to that particular platform, which gives staff discount. Through the new health and wellbeing strategy, we also introduced as a new element to that strategy financial wellbeing, not purely but partly in recognition of the awful impact, not just COVID, but obviously the what's the crisis? I can't think of the terminology. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I've been on compassionate leave and I'm not bereavement counselling. I'm not quite functioning 100%, so my memory is terrible. So financial well-being, crisis of living, that's not the terminology, is it?
Cost of living crisis.
Cost of living crisis, there you go. So that's something that we've introduced, and as part of that service, we are introducing a health plan. So staff will be able to pay a reduced amount each month to then access private medical and dental care.
Overall, the report is very good and very promising, and particularly around the apprenticeship, seeing the numbers of the apprenticeships go up, I think is really positive. I think the report is a real positive report. I suppose the one question would be, we've had it's a 5-year plan, and now we've reviewed it after 12 months. Whether or not there's a need to review that again next year is possibly not. If it's ongoing and it's going in the right direction, I don't think there's necessity for us to review it potentially every year. But obviously, if members think otherwise, I'm happy to think otherwise. But I know Jeremy mentioned this to me earlier about the fact, do we need to review it after 12 months? Leader.
Mr. Chairman, you get the quarterly performance reports into this committee. My suggestion would be that if you detect a drop-off in performance in this area of the council's business, then it would be right and proper for you to call it back. So, you know, that might be something to guide your decision. Did you cycle in this morning? Because I'm sure I saw you in Lycra earlier.
Not this morning, no, Leader, I didn't. I was carrying cakes and biscuits and one or two things, so it was a bit difficult in my backpack. Councillor Perry.
Pointing on what the leaders just said, likewise, if you feel there's a need to bring it back to us before that time, then it works both ways. Okay, thank you.
Can I go back to the recommendation at the front, that we note the progress made against the year 1 and 2 priorities of our people strategy 2023 to 2027. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 5, which is the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Principles, Objectives and Action Plan. Leader of the Council, Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll recall that this has been a requirement for local authorities to present this to scrutiny committees and indeed to Cabinet for several years now. And this is our annual gender pay gap and workforce profile noted from April. And we're asking you to provide comments and feedback on the emerging priorities for 2024. Page 61 really sets out, page 61 on the copy that you've got, sets out the principles and objectives for 21 to 23, just highlighting their currency and relevance. And then beyond page 73, we've got the EDI action plan, which I hope you've had the chance to review. Again, there's quite a lot of detail in this report, and for those councillors inclined to ask detailed questions, Sarah will of course assist where she can, but we may have to take some of those questions away. There has been a change in the profile of the workforce on gender pay gap recently. It's not really included as in the majority of last year's report because members will recall that the Deputy Chief Executive of Staffordshire County Council, Helen Riley, left us. That changed the profile of the top end of the organisation, and we brought in people working in the household waste recycling centres, predominantly males, and that changed the bottom end of the profile as well. So there has been a shift, but that's just been reflected in the nature of the workforce that we've had. Thank you.
Who wants to comment on this? Councillor Thompson.
I've just got a couple of questions on page 68. It says Amy's doing work experience for 12 weeks for care leavers. Is that fed back down to the Voice project and the that area concerned? Because I think the Voice project would be interested in something like that for the care leavers.
Thank you. I will pick that up and check that. As you may be aware, that particular team is promoting a new initiative for our care leavers. So there's even more work that organisationally we are doing, but whether or not the Amy work is something that they're aware of, I will make sure that they are. Thank you.
Sorry, if I could just come in, please, Mr. Chairman. Just around the care leavers thing, members will be aware that there's a concept known as protected characteristics, which allows you to be fast-tracked for an interview. We are currently considering making having been a care leaver a protected characteristic, which allows a guaranteed interviews, I think, isn't it? And you know, that opportunity to sit in front of an interview panel to at the very least get the foot in the door, given the circumstances that those people have found themselves in earlier in their lives and childhoods.
Councillor Tom.
Sorry, my second one is, I'm not quite sure what an employment broker is. So I just don't quite understand that bit, sorry. It's on page 66.
Thank you. So that is somebody that we employ to support and facilitate people that need that additional support, who are disabled, to seek employment, not just within Staffordshire County Council, but that's a service that we provide as an organisation. So an employment broker is someone that is employed specifically to work with individuals to help them access employment.
And have they been successful?
I assume so, but I don't have any statistics to share with the committee, but I can request that information if you would like more information on that.
Is that okay? Yes, please, if that's okay.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Councillor Yates.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a brief question, really. Page 65 and 5 other places within the report, it's references made to the careers brokerage team Open Door. and the work which they do. Could you just expand on their role and whether they come back, are they part of the council team, or are they an external provider? And do they sort of work to develop the sort of feeding between care leavers and actually employment? You know, do they offer the more holistic support to make sure that their welfare and concerns and development as people to come into an employment environment, and also a sort of home and housing environment? Because one of the issues with care leavers is that transition between having somewhere to stay and having somewhere not to stay. You know, there's a lot of anecdotal issues with regards to care leavers and homelessness, certainly above the age of 21 to 25, you know, where they're trying to find the feet, so to speak.
Thank you. Yes, the team that administer and manage the Open Door scheme are part of Staffordshire County Council, so they're part of the employability and skills team in economy, infrastructure and skills. I don't know about homelessness specifically. However, it's a really successful scheme. So there's been many, the statistics are contained within the report. So since that particular scheme was launched, there's been over 2,000 people that have been supported to work within Staffordshire County Council. I don't know how many, but a number of those people have then found permanent employment within Staffordshire County Council. So that does include care leavers. It also includes ex-offenders. It includes people that might have a disability or other condition that might mean getting employment is more difficult. So it does support a huge range of people, and they work very closely with the resourcing team, which is part of my team, to provide that sort of broader opportunity, which contributes to many of those people seeking, or rather securing permanent employment at the end of their placements with us. But I will check on the homelessness point specifically.
Yes, it is just looking at that holistic approach. It's employment is one of the sort of foundation stones of a stable life, but it's also making sure that they've got support with sort of finding housing and accommodation, so to speak, and the support of actually transitioning life and something where they effectively, there's a high degree of control into something which is totally complete and utter integration, and there's been a lot of success stories, but there's also, evidence that there is that sort of fallout rate, and that has a detrimental effect on both the individual and the wider society. So anything which we can do to ensure that, the whole approach is dealt with, which I'm sure it must be, but it's got to be a multi-agency approach to ensure that works successfully, and I certainly applaud the efforts which are being done in that direction.
Anybody else? I remember now, Sarah, what the question was from the previous report, mandatory e-learning. It was just how we got some sort of mechanism in place to make sure that that's completed. That was it.
Thank you. Yes, so the mandatory learning is contained with our online learning system, the Learning Hub. So when somebody completes that, it registers as completed, and we've just introduced a new manager report. So as a line manager, you can go into the system and instantly see a dashboard, so you can see who within your team has completed the mandatory learning or not. So managers then can follow that up with staff. So as a result of that new report and dashboard, we have seen an increase in compliance. Compliance is not at the level we would like it to be, so that is a particular priority at the moment, and we're working with the communications team to ask people and also to complete it, and also ask managers to make sure they're following that up for non-compliance within their teams. So I anticipate there will be improvement in the compliance levels.
Sorry, the other one for me was just on page 64 under D, the anti-harassment and bullying policy, and it mentions a small number of cases that have been raised. I'm not wanting to know what those cases are, but have they all been positively dealt with and sort of not still on outstanding?
Thank you. Previously, bullying and harassment allegations were dealt with under the grievance policy. We made a decision to extract that from the grievance policy and create a policy in its own right. I don't recall the numbers off the top of my head, but there's a significant reduction. I think there's possibly only one bullying current case at the moment. We have seen through the reporting and tracking that we're doing a reduction in the number of cases and also the reduction in the time to investigate and conclude those cases. So the figures within the report are is a sort of a historical look back. What we do know is there's been significant improvement, i.e. a reduction in those type of particular cases.
Could I just briefly, Mr. Chairman, just point out the fact that just because there's an accusation of bullying arises doesn't mean to say that bullying has taken place. Sometimes people are asked to do a job of work. They don't particularly fancy doing that job of work, and they might make a claim that they're being hassled, and that's tantamount to bullying. So we need to be careful in how we describe these things, simply because one person's managerial style, which might be described as ordinary and routine, might be perceived by somebody who's on receipt of it to be tantamount to bullying. So we do have to I do have to just be a little cautious with that.
No, completely understand that. And then finally from me, on the bottom of page 67, where it talks about the partnership between Staffordshire County Council and AME, and the fact that AME have now developed this 12-week paid work experience placement for care leavers. Are we able to expand that with other businesses that actually engage with the county council? Is that something we're trying to push out to other companies to sort of see what AME are doing to sort of replicate their sort of area?
I believe that the team that supports our care leavers do everything in their power to secure employment for the care leavers. It's a really good point in terms of the particular offer that AME are making. So that's something that I will take away, if that is okay, and speak to my resourcing team to pick up with AME and the care leaver support team. Thank you.
Just Mr. Chairman, we can look at the framework and the people we've already engaged with, and you know, ask ourselves: is there a way that we can encourage them to be recruiting care leavers as part of a contracting procedure with Staffordshire County Council? I think that's a reasonable request where it's within scope. Clearly, if we're contracting with somebody who's a very long way away from Staffordshire or has got no relationship to it, that might be unreasonable. But certainly, if it's a reasonable proposal, we'll take a look at it.
Anybody else then on this report? No? Thank you very much. So we go back to the recommendations which were at the front of the document. To note the progress of the Council's work to further strengthen its approach to equality, diversity and inclusion, including delivery of the action plan. Note the Council's gender pay gap report and workforce profile as reported in April 2023, and to provide comments and feedback on the emerging priorities for 24-25 as part of the Council's continued commitment to promote equality, diversity and inclusion. Well, happy with that? Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for your time this morning. Thank you, Sarah and Leader. Thank you. It's entirely up to you. You don't have to. If you've got somewhere else to go, that's fine. You carry on. Entirely you. Okay. Yes. We're just going to bring in now Rachel Spain to join us for the next item. Give us 1 minute. Thank you both very much, and have a lovely Christmas both. Enjoy the rest. Recharge the batteries, etc. Yeah, we're just getting ready now, folks, to move on to agenda item 6, which is the report of the medium-term financial strategy working group. So thank you, Rachel, for joining us this morning for this report. Very much appreciated. So, folks, this is actually, I suppose, my report as chairman of the working group, but it goes to say that a lot of the people around this room this morning have been involved in putting this together. So I don't actually intend to go through it page by page or line by line, but it is important that you as a group accept this report, which will obviously get referred to Cabinet for its meeting on the 24th of January. Needless to say, Cabinet have already seen the draft report, but under the understanding that if any changes were made from today, they would be added to the report. The reason being, we wanted to give them enough time to at least digest the report and to see whether anything within that report is something they would take forward or at least be able to respond to us back. And I think they respond to us after their Cabinet meeting in January.
That's right, 2 months after.
2 months after we get a report back. So I'll open it up to anyone that wants to have any comments on the report to start with. Anyone?
I think we've given it a pretty good.
We have. I'm just thinking of anyone that perhaps wasn't part of it, if they got any. I mean, we looked at the key areas that we looked at. You will see are in the back of the report, which were. Here's me trying to find it now. The areas where we looked at. We were concerned about children's. The areas that we recommended back to Cabinet are around Plan B. There doesn't seem to be a Plan B if Plan A doesn't work in relation to children's transformation. Send transport, EHCP guidance. So I think it's fair to say that all the areas we touched on are areas that the Cabinet already are aware of issues and concerns and constraints and pressures. So we were just trying to highlight those and to sort of look at other ways in which they could perhaps particularly look at the savings that need to be achieved in those years to come. And if they don't achieve them, what are the options for them to do anything differently? Councillor Pert.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't originally going to speak on this because, having been part of the MTFS, it seemed a bit pointless to big up your report, given we'd contributed to it. The only question I've got in my mind, and it's maybe a rhetorical question, is that since we wrote the report, there seems to be a softening of approach from the government based on the number of councils that are in section 114. Is that right? Is that the right section? 114 predicaments, such that I pick up a strong rumour that Michael Gove might be much more magnanimous and much more like Father Christmas this year than has been the case previously. And if that was to be the case, did we want to put into the report something which would be where our target areas were the council to get more money? Because the whole point should not be that it goes into savings and, you know, isn't this a nice world? It needs to be targeted to our residents' priorities.
Comment at all on that with relation to Councillor Pert's question?
Only to say that the settlement is expected to be announced later today, so we will hopefully know more in a few hours' time about whether Mr Gove has been like Father Christmas or not. But yes, it might be something which members want to think about in terms of adding a recommendation in.
Councillor Pert?
Given that, I mean, might you want to leave the report as it is, but have an addendum which we could agree separately over email? Because I would hate to miss the opportunity and find that actually it wasn't targeted towards where we felt the priorities were.
Well, I think members, I think that's a really important part. It may well be then, Rachel, that when the settlement is known, if perhaps you could give us a sort of just a small briefing as to what the changes have been and what the impact it could have on our report. I can then circulate that round to members over Christmas or whatever, and if there's anything else you want to add to it, because Cabinet aren't meeting again now till 30 January, so we've got a bit of time to put an addendum to it, which I think is really worth doing, knowing the fact that we may well hear some better news today. Any other comments on the report?
And just say thank you to yourself and the members that are sitting around the room that have actually gone through all of this. We hope that you've done it as justice and put in what your intentions were, as Jeremy's just said, added another one in, and we'll watch this space and wait and see whether it comes to fruition or not, as the case might be. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Perry. I think, yeah, I mean, I'll echo those words. Certainly the help we've had from Rachel and the help from Deb Breeden has been absolutely first class and helped us get through. And all the members who diligently turned up and went through all the information that we had. And we had lots of people come to talk to us and tell us about the issues and the complexities and the challenges. And we've just tried to reflect that. And I think what we didn't want to do at the outset, we didn't want to get into a situation that we previously had, you know, dozens of recommendations that were sort of difficult to actually put in place. Whereas having 4 key areas where we know the pressures are for this county council, are able just to sort of highlight to the Cabinet we understand. And I think for me, a lot of it was a better understanding of actually where the money goes and is spent, because I think for lots of members probably don't have that understanding of where it is and the pressures that we have. So I think the very fact that we've done that puts us on the front foot in relation to all that sort of part going forward. Anybody else want to? Councillor Yates.
Yeah, I just think that's a pertinent point, because I think it goes wider than most members don't know where the money is spent. Most residents don't know where the money is spent, and the fact that certainly when you consider how big the county council budget is, and how the proportion of the county council component of the council tax bill actually is, and how much of that money is actually a fixed expenditure by statute in regards to obviously education, children's services and social care. And everything else which we do is really just the rump of what's left, so to speak. So when it comes, you know, the frustration which we all have about the Facebook posts and the letters and the local papers about potholes and things. I mean, I don't know a single county officer, a single county cabinet member, a single councillor who doesn't want to have billiard table roads throughout Staffordshire and the wider country. But the reality of it is that we, you know, the whole aspect of county work with the requirement for where we have to do statutory spend is effectively doing the job with one hand firmly tied up your back, isn't it, really, so to speak. It's hard to communicate that, and even if it is communicated, it's forgotten the day after. But the reality of it is that the big things which we looked at are actually outside, are really to create the space to do the little things which most residents think are the 100% priority and matter.
For me, the most telling point is bullet point 47, where we highlight the deficit reduction plan and the fact of the savings that have been factored into there, those savings targets. And of course, they're quite stretching targets, and if they don't get achieved, then obviously we're looking at a completely different scenario. But of course, by the end of the day, there may well be a different story to be told. But and I think also on the EHCPs and the school and the transport that we talked about, I think they're all key areas that are really ones that we need to try and address and try and help Cabinet in addressing. So I don't think they'll see anything in here that will be sort of a surprise to them. Of course, the other thing was some of the underspends around the budgeting of certain departments. Again, there's small pockets of money that could come. And I agree with you, Jeremy, if there is any change in government policy and funding, we need to make sure it goes into the right areas to actually address those things that are needed by our residents, yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else, Rachel, you wanted to say, and finally with the report. Are you happy as an officer that we've covered off all the things that were important to cover off the Cabinet?
Yes, I'm very happy that the working group has focused on the risks, and, you know, as you've said, you had a great deal of information and people coming through to the group to talk to everyone, and I think that's been really, really useful. So this is a good focused report now that Cabinet will be able to respond to at their next meeting in January.
Lovely, thank you. So I think the recommendation is that following today's announcement by government, if there are any changes that affect the funding or affect any of our report, we'll circulate that as an email, and if members are happy, then we'll just add that as an addendum to the bottom of the report. So other than that, is everyone happy to accept the report? Lovely, thank you very much then. So we'll move on to the next item. And I'll find it back on my thing here now, wherever it is.
Work programme.
Is it work programme? Okay, so we're on to the work programme. Obviously, a lot of this is historical. I think the only thing, if we move forward to where we are now, it's just following our triangulation meeting. We've got the one interest on the bottom of page 144, review of changes. I think there was some concern at our last meeting that Entrust probably came with information that we didn't particularly find particularly useful. And I know that Councillor Francis and Councillor Yates and Councillor Pert were concerned that are we actually getting the right information that we want to see actually how they're performing. So we've set up a meeting in January with those councillors and officers just to make sure that in future the report that we get from Entrust actually covers off the stuff that we wanted to cover off. So if anybody wants to join that group, you're more than welcome. I think is that taking place after a corporate ONS meeting?
It is.
It is, yeah, on that day. So it doesn't mean you've got to come out separately. So if anybody wants to join that, you will be more than welcome. I think the other items that we had that came from the triangulation was the one about cyber security. Probably a briefing or an information paper for these members of this committee. That was raised at the meeting. Activity that's taking place. Ian Turner's the lead officer on that. The legal function, how we're performing, how decisions are taken. Again, we may well get the lawyer to come along and just talk to us about that, about the process around legal.
Members briefing in January.
Oh, a members briefing in January.
For all members.
For all members, we've suggested on the legal function, because again, I suppose not a lot of our members know actually what the function is of our legal department at the County Council. And then two other items that were mentioned were planning and customer services. There's a draft strategy on customer service coming to April ONS. And on planning, again, I'm going to have a chat to the chair of the planning committee. I think there has been some concern, certainly from districts and boroughs, as to the actual timing of responses coming back, particularly from Highways Department. So I thought I would have a conversation with the chair of planning just to see exactly are there any issues in relation to timeliness of actual responses coming back to districts and boroughs, because they often are the ones that are waiting for. Yep.
Just on highways, Chair, I think the reports that come back for planning applications are too generic, and they've not been out to the site, they've not been out at different times of the day, because we're the local members, we're telling them that there's an issue, and then we get to the planning meeting and there's a planning application, and then you look at the highway report and you think, well, when did you go out? 3 o'clock in the morning or something? So I think we need to have less generic reports, and actually members need to insist where you can that there's a site visit that takes place and you're with them, so you can actually say these are the issues. Members are not being involved. We don't know when they go out, we don't know when they're looking at the actual site for their reports, and I just think it's happened a couple of times now while I've been planning chair at Tamworth that the reports are just too generic, and you look at them and you think, for goodness sake. Just a general comment.
I just want to agree with what Tina said. I was part of the local plan for district, and we have a particular island that's an issue for traffic, and they wouldn't have it that they should have someone local there to have a look, to sit at the plans. They were just doing it from a map, and it was like banging your head against a brick wall. I've recently asked for a crossing put in by a shopping centre that wants to come opposite a school, and the highways went out again and went, no, there's no problem. Yeah, you're looking at kids running across the road to a sweet shop, and I agree totally with what Tina says. They do it above, and they won't last to the local people.
Councillor Perry.
So thank you, Chairman. Just briefly, I can concur with what's been said. It is a nightmare. In fact, this afternoon I've actually requested a Teams meeting with officers, with David Williams as well, because we're not involved in the planning, are we, at all? So, and we're the local members, we know where the issues are, and the HGVs are an absolute nightmare going down roads they shouldn't be going down, and it needs a good sort out, so that would be a good one. Yeah.
Councillor Pert.
Notwithstanding what has been said by other members this morning, just because you mentioned the word planning, I know the Health Committee has looked at what the trigger points are from a development management point of view to involve the ICS, the Integrated Care System, in consultation on planning particularly when local primary care facilities are being looked at. I'd be more than happy to share the response from the integrated care system. I know it's slightly off the points that were being made, but
It's important.
No, Councillor, but that'd be very useful to share that information. So my suggestion is that perhaps myself and the two vice chairs get together with the chair of planning initially with our concerns, and then perhaps we could even call them to a meeting with some planning officers to actually outline what the concerns are from the highways point of view. Are we all happy that we do that? We'll take that.
Is it worth that people filter back their questions to us?
Yeah, very much so. Yes, please do. Yeah, let us know. And we'll try and get a meeting set up early January to see what, and then there's no reason why we can't actually have a report come to this committee, because I think it's an area, listening to you today, that probably affects most of us one way or the other in relation to that. Councillor Yates.
Yeah, the one thing I don't understand about highways and projects and things is that we're effectively the elected members, and part of our campaigning, it doesn't matter which colour it is sort of listening and taking soundings from our communities for them to say where the pinch points are. And when you speak to your highways team and say, oh, by the way, you said one of the pinch points which I get is X, Y and Z, whether it's a crossing, whether it's a dangerous junction, whether it's road resurface, and they say, is there any chance of, you know, having a discussion to put that forward into next year's plan? And they say, well, next year's plan's already set in stone or set in tarmac. And that's not what we want to hear, because you're thinking, well, why didn't you come to me at the start when you were thinking of having that conversation? Because what will happen next year, I'll have the same and I do it in a timely manner. I was talking about one particular thing in July this year, thinking that, you know, that's 9 months before when budget setting and whatever. And that is the absolute frustration, is how you get in early with something which shouldn't be a wish list because it's based on a genuine concern.
We'll pick up all those points and we'll have that meeting, and then we'll take it from there, so how we can progress it. Anything else on the work programme, anyone? Okay, so that being that, there's item 8 is the exclusion of the public. There's nothing to move in confidential, so thank you all very much for your time this morning. I don't know whether, Jeremy, you've come into any money this morning on that, but...
I think he's a minute out.
Is he a minute out? But can I, from the chair, please wish you all a very enjoyable and happy Christmas and a peaceful New Year to you all. And look forward to seeing you in January.
And the same to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.